On Saturday night, leaders of the California Democratic Committee fired a powerful shot at five-term Senator Dianne Feinstein, endorsing her opponent, State Senator Kevin De Leon, in November's election.
We all support family values, don't we?
It's just the latest sign that progressive Democrats are feeling energized and beginning to lose patience with party leadership. In Washington, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, an icon of the activist left, is moving closer to running for the caucus chair position that opened up when New York Democrat Joe Crowley lost his primary to progressive Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Progressives in New York are trying to make their state the epicenter of the left-wing earthquake, and they're looking to the September primary as their next big chance to shake things up.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. You say you're Cynthia?
Cynthia Nixon has been running to unseat New York Governor Andrew Cuomo since March. She was already famous, but now she gets that special recognition that goes with being a liberal agitator in New York City these days.
I'm Cynthia Nixon. I'm running for governor.
You grew up here, right? I mean, this is like
Yeah.
This is like your city.
It's absolutely. It's my city. It's my state. You know, we have 5 boroughs in the city of New York.
Right.
Staten Island sometimes feels like the forgotten borough. It's by far the smallest. But it was really important to me to go out here today.
I think everybody thinks that New York is kind of doing super well right now. The outside story is like, it's all gentrified, there's no crime anymore, you get a free ferry, you do whatever you want. I feel like your campaign talks about a New York that maybe most people don't hear about, or people aren't doing as well.
There is a lot in New York City and New York State that's very glittery. And I think we have an incredible amount of wealth here. But the fact of the matter is that when I was a kid, we had a lot of wealthy people here too, but we didn't have nearly as many as we do now, and their influence wasn't as pervasive.
Such a big apartment to buy for just you.
I have a lot of shoes.
It may seem ironic for one of the women who made this city sexy again in the 90s, but Nixon's campaign is out to de-glitter New York. She wants to show that this Democratic stronghold actually kind of sucks for a lot of Democratic voters.
We are now the most unequal state in the entire country, with both incredible wealth and extreme poverty.
She tells this story a lot, like this weekend at Richmond Terrace Houses, a public housing project near the ferry terminal where residents had been digging up old needles out of their filthy green spaces.
Did you just know that the lead in the ground and the dirt was an issue? How did you know that?
Struggling New York is not hard to find. The state was recently ranked as having the highest economic inequality in the country. So Nixon's message seems good for these political times and in this particular place. But this campaign is still greeted with more skepticism than anything else, in part because she doesn't have any elected experience. And then there's that other part.
For some reason, when we talk about progressive celebrities, the conversation's usually like, it's not good if they get involved in politics. People don't want to hear them, and they can't speak to people sort of outside very, very liberal circles, right? And you're running this statewide campaign. Why do you think that people say that about people like you?
Anybody who says that is really misjudging the moment that we're in. When you speak to people's issues and when you speak to a lack of progressive change, I think that people care less about the messenger and more about the message. And I also think that the more people are learning about my history, I'm actually somebody who's been fighting for better funded public schools for the last 17 years and fighting for LGBTQ equality and abortion rights and women's rights. They understand better that this is not something that I woke up one morning and did on a whim. This is actually something that I've been considering for a long time.
The 56th governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Cuomo, a 2-term incumbent, isn't running again on a whim either. There are few politicians in America as good at politics as Andrew Cuomo. He fights back, and he fights to win. Right now, Cuomo's fighting hard to keep his job. He also talks about the problems in New York.
Central Brooklyn has been overlooked for decades. But
he says he's done things to make them better. Nixon doesn't think so. You get the strong sense she doesn't like Cuomo very much.
He's really much more comfortable with Republicans, supporting Republican candidates and Republican leaders, and really fiscally and in every other way governing like a Republican.
It's hard to find a quantitative metric that suggests Democratic voters in New York are buying this take on Cuomo in large numbers. Nixon's campaign is limping in the polls, and at the state Democratic convention in May, most of the response was not positive.
Sex and the City is a great show. Well, this is not prime time, this is, it's just real people, real lives.
But Nixon says, like in New York, there's an untold story to her campaign. Last week, she turned in 65,000 signatures to get on the state ballot. That's 50,000 more than she needed. And after Democratic socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shocked the Democratic establishment in a congressional primary, Nixon's campaign message became, "I'm with her."
So are you a Democratic socialist?
Well, so it's a label that I've never pinned on myself before, but the more I learn about the Democratic Socialists, their values are absolutely my values.
But you're not wearing the label yet, officially, or?
Well, really, I mean, I want to be clear that when I don't line up with 100% every single policy, but all of the major ones, I absolutely do.
Progressives in New York are liking their win-loss record these days.
Kids in every corner of this state without regard to their zip code, their property taxes, or their skin color.
But this is a whole new ballgame. They need Nixon to bat 1,000.
It's very important to make sure that people understand that I would not be running if I didn't think that I could win. This is not a protest candidacy. This is a all or nothing.